What's up, my know-it-alls? Well, it's that time again. Episode 2 of Moon Knight has dropped, and it is unbelievable. The story continues. The adventure's awesome. Let's get into it. With little time to react, Stephen is thrust into a war of gods as a mysterious partner arrives. Man, I was excited. So I started the episode, and they did the recap, obviously. And the one thing that I realized is this show is definitely striving for more, and they're doing an amazing job wrapping exposition into the narrative. We'll get into it a little more, and I'll explain a little more about what that means. So the episode begins with our recap, obviously, and then Stephen waking up in his apartment. And, of course, he jumps up, and he's still attached, and it's very much the scene we've seen before in the trailers and whatnot. And so he rushes over to the mirrors, and he's looking, and he's trying to find, and he's like, what's going on? What's happening? Talk to me. After a bit, he eventually realizes he's just got to go home, or go to work, rather, not home, but go to work. And so he walks back to the museum, and that's when, as soon as he gets in, his security guard friend is kind of cordoning off some areas, and he's like, we need to go look at the security tape. So they go to look at the security tape, and you see in the tape, Stephen he's hiding, he's moving, he's doing some stuff, but ultimately, you don't see who's chasing him. So that leads him to look like he just ran into the bathroom and vandalized it, which is somewhat problematic considering that they roll to the back to the end of the scene and you see him walk out, but it's not him. The face that Mark has on when he walks out of the bathroom is pretty hardcore. He's all like, brooding and it's great. It's amazing. And so he looks right up at the camera because that's what you do. And then so we cut to the he's talking to, I think, either the head of security or something for the museum, someone in maybe it's just HR, human resources, and they realize that he's disturbed. And so they hand him a like help group, one of those rehab type mental health places, a brochure, and he's all like, well, it looks nice, doesn't it? And so then, and they, it's so sad because then they're like, do you have any of our property? And he's like, no, I don't have anything. And then they're like, yeah, we're going to need that name tag from you. And so he's like, he takes the name tag off, puts it on the table. It isn't long before Mark is then talking to the gold man, and the gold man is sort of in the same exact pose, and Mark's talking to him, and finally at one point Mark's like, because when he talks to the golden statue guy, he's just talking, and then eventually he's like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to go do this thing, I have this idea, I gotta go find it, blah blah blah, and he hugs the guy, and the guy, you see the guy's eyes move like, what's going on here? I know that in the comic books, the character is that the Gold Man is supposed to be someone who helps Mark Spector, like an informant almost. I don't know if they're going to do this exact same thing in the show. Be interested to see that myself. And so eventually Mark decides that the best option he's got is he's got to go find where this, where the stuff he has goes, where it leads to. And so he has the key and he has the phone. The phone is still on, by the way. That's going to come into play a little later. But the key itself, so it's got a little logo on it from a place, it's like a storage unit type place. And apparently he gets to the last place and he's looking around. He's got a ton of them all over the entire place. And so the guy at the door is like, yeah, I recognize you. I recognize faces, whatever. And so he takes him to his storage unit and opens it up for him, unlocks it, and walks away. We then get a shot of space number 43, and there's a little QR code, and I couldn't help myself. So I got on my phone, and I got on my phone, and then that's what I saw. Kind of cool. Marvel little link there. So if you guys get an opportunity to visit the thing, it's literally just taking you to the Marvel Moon Knight comic book at Marvel Unlimited, so you can read the comic line of Moon Knight. It's pretty cool. I'm really digging little Easter eggs like that. And so he eventually walks into this storage, which should be a storage unit, and It's exactly that. There's some shelves, there's some equipment, there's a cot in the corner, and as he's looking around, he comes to a bag. He opens up the bag, and sure enough, there's a gun. And he's like, oh, and then there's money. And then he finds a passport. And this is the first time we full on get to see Mark's full name, Mark Spector. So Stephen Grant is the personality that we follow, our prime personality that we see. We're going to call him the prime personality, but based on this episode, I think we're going to... No, for sure. So this episode lets us clearly understand that Mark is probably the dominant or the prime personality. Yes. We'll see. Then, and of course, he also finds the little scarab. The thing opens up and it starts to float above his hand. It almost reminds me of one of those anti-gravity type things that you keep on your desk that kind of floats around there. And he kind of moves around and whatnot. And then he hears Mark's voice. So then we start seeing reflections, and the reflections are talking, and they're clearly moving differently, and that's how they exert themselves back and forth and having a conversation. And Mark's like, you gotta let me control, blah, blah, this and that. And Mark's like, no, I don't want to know any of this stuff. And so he's determined to not be a murderer. And so Mark's like, or Steven's like, yeah, I'm going to take this stuff. I'm going to go to the police. I'm going to tell him this and that. And then he goes out. And when he goes out, he begins to see the spirit of Khonshu in the dark. And it's just like it was in his hallway where the lights are flashing and stuff. And he's looking back and forth and whatnot. And then little by little in the flashes, this thing's kind of walking toward him closer and closer. It's very awesome. Very ominous. Again, very mind thriller, but isn't full on horror, but it's definitely that like mind thriller, what's going on, maybe supernatural thriller, whatever. And so he's running and he runs and turns a corner and eventually, and there's Khonshu waiting right there, and Khonshu turns around. At this point, Mark bails and he runs outside. And when he runs, he gets hit by a girl on a scooter. This is Layla. Layla's tracked him using his cell phone. Remember I said we get back to that? Right. She tracked him using his cell phone, and so he's riding on her, and she's talking to him. It's like, I can't believe you've done this, and why would you go, this and that? What's going on? And did you summon the suit, and this and that? And he's talking, and she's talking to him, and he's all like, what? And he's clutching, I guess, her shoulders, and finally he's like, he's got his hands around her waist, and he's like, can you just take me home, please? And she's like, what's this voice about? What's going on? This whole time, she doesn't believe anything like this. Apparently it's been a long time since she's talked to him. So then Steven, they go to the apartment, and she's like, she sees the fish, and then you see Mark's reflection, and Mark's like, you need to get her out of here. You need to get out of here. You don't need to have her involved. If she gets involved, she's going to be in danger. He's explaining pretty quickly. However, Steven doesn't want to hear it. So eventually Layla's looking around and she finds a poetry book, and it's a book, and apparently it's one of Steven's favorite books. Come to find out, no, it's not. It's one of Layla's favorite poets. It's quickly coming together. I believe what we're going to end up finding out is that Mark was the prime personality. Mark had to establish a new personality or a new life. And in doing so, eventually, because of either causing it, or later on, Ethan Hawke's Harrow asks a pretty important question. He says to him, like, did Khonshu choose you because he could break you easily, break your mind, or because your mind was already broken? So it's a chicken and the egg question that I'm very interested to find out the answer to eventually. I hope they do address something along those lines. But I don't want to get ahead of myself here in the story. Eventually, she pulls out the papers. It's divorce papers. And he's like, what? I don't want to divorce you, this and that. And she's like, look, just go ahead and sign the thing. And eventually, he tries to show her, listen, I'm going to show you what's going on. He opens up the bag, and she sees the Scarab thing. Apparently, Mark stole the Scarab thing. She makes allusions to them having adventures, and she references the suit several times. So it's almost the idea that the suit is supernatural, not whatever's possessed him. And again, you learn more about the in-depth of that story as we go. Eventually, people start knocking on the door, and it's some police officers who are there to question him. And so he lets them in, and once inside, they ask some very poignant questions, and eventually the one police officer, she's looking around outside, and because we wonder where the heck Layla went. Layla up and disappeared. He answers the door, turns around, Layla's gone. So what happens is Female officer goes to the window, looks around, and we see Layla outside the window on the roof, like near the where the window's got like a ledge around it, whatever, and she's hiding there. Anyway, very decorative. So eventually come back in, and the one police officer finds the Mark Spector passport, and you're like, whoopsie. But and even on the car, they're finding out all this information, and you see Mark Spector was a bad man. Apparently, he's a fugitive wanted by for questioning at an archaeology. Let me see. It says here archaeology site, either massacre or murders or something. But yeah, he's pretty rough. They eventually pull into a small alley in a little teeny town, township area, and that's when the one guy, he's like, "I thought we were going to the police," and the one guy's like, "Why would we do that?" And he adjusts the rear view, and you see the weights and scales tattoo, and I'm just like, "You didn't see that coming, bro. We did." Anyways, yeah, no, I get pretty. I get pretty pulled in and drawn into these things. Anyway, so then you see everyone, like those kids playing sports and whatever, or playing soccer, whatever, in the street, and football. And Mark is looking at the reflection of Mark is like, dude, you need to give me control, or we're screwed. He then gets dropped out of the car, and you see Harrow lean down, and Harrow's really understanding very quickly. Harrow's like, "Hey, are you okay? Come on, man, stand up, this and that. Let's get you going." And he begins to ask him. He's like, "Are you seeing Khonshu now? We had to get a better idea of what was going on with you." And Khonshu, sure enough, is there, causing trouble, making the wind blow. And Ethan Hawke's Harrow is like, "This is all he can do without you. Without your body, he can just kind of blow the wind around. Ignore him. You're good." And you begin to get the gist that Ethan Hawke knows about Khonshu. I mean, he already knows about Ammit, and that's fine, whatever, because that's who he's following in the whole bit. That's what the scales and weight and measure and the whole cane thing and all that stuff and the Anubis dog looking thing. But yeah, so that immediately pulls me in. I'm like, well, let's see what more he has to say. And he's walking him through, and he's like, "Yeah, no, all these people here, everybody here is here voluntarily. Everybody here, this used to be a crime-ridden area. I've helped. We've made it. Now people, can leave their doors unlocked. It's safe." He talks about how, this one guy is cooking some food and the whole bit. And you see Khonshu just sitting there getting, as he walks by, just being ticked off. They go into an area, some people are learning to one side. Khonshu's still sitting there, and Khonshu's like, "You need to kill him. You need to blah, 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 this and that. Hit him in the throat." And he's like, "I am vengeance. I am justice." And then you see Harrow's like, is he saying the I am vengeance thing? I'm justice. Is that what he's saying? And you're just like, and dude's like, "Can you hear him?" And he's like, "No, not anymore." You find out Harrow was the original avatar of the moon, avatar of Khonshu. And something happened. I assume he just moved on. He picked someone else, whatever else. And you start to get an understanding of how Khonshu works. So Khonshu is not... Ammit was banished. Khonshu is just shunned. Like the other gods don't like him. But he's not... He isn't Ammit banished. And that's the part that they're... Apparently you find out the Scarab deal is supposed to point the direction to Ammit's tomb, where she's locked away. So a sliver of her power is in that fancy cane of his. And as he's talking, all the people nearby stand up. And he's like, "What's going on? Why did everybody stand up?" And they're talking more and more. And eventually he stands up. He's like, "Look, I don't have this thing." And Mark in the reflections is like, "Don't you dare give up Layla. Don't you dare give up Layla." And next thing you know... Sure enough, Layla shows up. And Khonshu's blowing the wind, and she's holding the Scarab, and she's like, "I've got it, blah, blah, blah." And sure enough, they start to run, and she's like, you need to summon the suit, you need to summon the suit right now. And he's like, I can't, I'm sorry. And so they run. And while they're running, dude slams his cane on the floor, and you see this cool electrical power and purple energy, and it's very dope. And there's light everywhere, and eventually the ground opens up, and sure enough, the paw claw thing of one of those Anubis guys pops out. It's very cool. And so now Mark is in the reflection like, you got to give me control. Oh my gosh, let me save us. And he's like, no, I'm never giving you control again. And so they're like, you got to summon the suit. And he's like, I really can't. And that's when the dog thing shows up. And now we see Layla can't see it either. And in a few seconds, you're going to learn that, but we can see the result of it. So it's really there, but people can't see it. And so Mark gets thrust outside the window. And as he lands, he did summon the suit. A suit. It's the Mr. Moon Knight suit. It's him in the mask and the tie, hence the thumbnail of the episode. But it's Steven in control. So Steve, and sure enough, Mark's like, ugh, what are we wearing? What are you doing? And he's like, I don't know, I summoned a suit. This not what I'm supposed to summon? And he's like, no, stop being silly. What are you doing? But his eyes glow. It's dope. We got glowing eyes. I love it. Anyway. So he reaches back behind him and he pulls out these Tomfa looking things made out of metal, and he's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these. Oh my gosh. It's great. He's totally, it's crazy. So he gets knocked around again by by Ammit's dog Anubis thing. And he kind of in the street tries to grab onto a car to get up, and he squeezes it. So clearly he has superhuman strength as well in this form. And pretty dope, actually. But yeah, so he rips the bumper off, and so Layla shows up, and she just sees him fighting nothing, and finally she manages. And I mean, but you can see clearly he's fighting something, because he's getting picked up and he's thrown, and you think he's having a fit or a seizure of some kind. Finally, she throws liquid near him, and you see it land on the creature thing. So now she has something to see, and now she tries to stab it with a piece of a bottle. Mark picks up an old car rim, and Steven picks up an old car rim and slams it into the thing. They're fighting. It's a fight, full on. And so at one point the thing's holding this and that, and it drops Layla, lunges at him, and he's rolled up his sleeves by now, and he's like, "Pah!" and he hits it. And then he's like, woo, look what I did. Because it's his strength. He's his first time using superhero powers. What do you expect? The Anubis dog thing hits him and knocks him into the street. And people are like, what's going on, man? And sure enough, he's getting slammed into this thing. And eventually he gets up, and Mark's like, not bad. That was a good hit. That was a real good hit. And he's like, you going to give me control now so I can save us? And he's like, yes, please take control, but only for a little while. And for the first time, we get to see uninterrupted the transformation sequence. So last episode, we got to see that it was all the blinking, and he's like, whatever. And so now we see the whole thing happen. And sure enough, as soon as he takes over, the Mr. Moon Knight suit disappears, and it's the standard Moon Knight suit with the hood and the whole bit. And he pulls his moon knives. Moon knives. Probably not original, but I've never heard it before, because I've never read the comics for Moon Knight. Anyways, so he shows up, and sure enough, he starts going. He's taking the thing away, and they're running over rooftops and jumping, and the thing chases him. And finally, he gets to this one very specific area. The thing jumps at him, and he in the air grabs it and slams it down, stabbing it onto a thing. Now, obviously, you can't see it anyway, but it starts to dissolve. You see a homeless guy pick up the Scarab. It's on the ground because Mark lost it. He checks. And you see Harrow, who picks it up and ultimately kills the homeless man. Layla saw all this. So then we cut back to Mark, and Mark is, you see for the very first time, Steven is the reflection. Mark is in control. And Steven's like, all right, you got to give my body back. You got to give my body back. And he's like, something's changed. You shouldn't know. There used to be a wall between us. Something has changed. I don't know what's going on. And now we get the real nitty gritty. the reason that Mark has kept Layla out of all this is that apparently Khonshu has his eyes, I guess that'd be his eye sockets. Khonshu has his eye sockets on Layla to be his replacement. So he's trying to hold on as long as he can to keep her safe. And that's why he wanted a divorce. He wanted her out of his life. He wanted to move on. He was trying to push her out of his life to protect her. And now this yut, Steven, has screwed all that up. Steven, why are you screwing things up, Steven?
Oh, Steven!
Yes.
I'm not drunk. I'm just intoxicated by you.
So, yeah, it's, and eventually Khonshu shows up and he's like, I thought you said he wouldn't be a problem. And he's like, it's not a problem, this and that. And so the Khonshu's like, I don't like you trying to change the terms of our deal. And so he goes, he's like, I'm going to finish this. And when we're done, that's it. I'm done. I'm free. And he's like, I don't know if you want to be free because you may not like who I have in mind to replace you. After all, and I'm like, oh, you suck. And so he's like, you better stay away from her, this and that. And he's like, where are we going? Where do you want me to go next? And he's like, isn't it obvious? And we cut to Mark drinking in Egypt. That's right. They're in Egypt. So, yeah, man, it's not a bad episode. This one's directed by Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson. It's written by Michael Castelline, whatever. And so, yeah, I enjoy where this is going. I love what they're building up to. The show seems to be paced really nicely. So, yeah, man, there you go. Now you know. And if knowing's half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. So what is the know-it-all index for Moon Knight, Episode 2, Summon the Suit? I'm going to give this one I loved everything about this episode. I'm super impressed at the moment. I'm going to go 9. Go 9 out of 10. A 10 out of 10 is very difficult with me. A 10 out of 10, you got to be perfect. This show's bordering on that for me at the moment. I could very well see before the end of the series is out, there being a 10 out of 10 episode. For now, episode 2, 9 out of 10. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed the heck out of it. Infinitely rewatchable. So, yeah. Hey, man, do me a favor. Subscribe, click the little bell icon to be notified when new content drops. Mainly the YouTube algorithms, in order for us to get any kind of attention or traction. It used to be that you had to go and impress people and be all, snazzy and have a nice everything. Now you just have to make sure the algorithm knows that people like you and you're engaging. So if you like this video, please hit the like button. It really does help. And yeah, I'm gonna hopefully start coming up with some new things, some know-it-all notes or something along those lines to kind of help be a little more entertaining. Let me know what you think. Drop it in the comment section. I'd love to know if there's anything I could be doing potentially to make these reviews more engaging. So thank you very much. And again, remember, everybody loves a know-it-all. See you next week.